Okay, welcome everybody. Hello, my name's Adam. We're here to talk about future-proofing post and VFX in the age of data everywhere. I'm delighted to have three really brilliant people on stage with me today to talk about what's happening in the industry today, how we can build resilient post-production and VFX studios to take advantage of market forces, and how technology and creativity are melded together in the IT process to deliver amazing projects. So with that, I'll do some quick introductions. To my left is Tom Taylor, the founder of Gunpowder Studios. I'll let Tom do a quick introduction. Tim Llewellyn from Atomic Cartoons. Tim is the head of CG, and Robert Crowther, also of Atomic Cartoons, who is the IT manager. Tom, you want to get us started? Tell us a little bit about what you and what type of projects you're working on.
Sure, absolutely. Hi, everybody. Gunpowder is a systems integrator. We specialize in cloud migrations, moving traditional workloads from on-premises into the cloud. We are a 5-year-old company, which means we started right at the beginning of COVID. My background is in media and entertainment. I was CTO for The Mill and across all of Technicolor advertising. Rest in peace. Yeah, we thrilled to be here today and to discuss what we're doing.
Great to have you. Tim?
Hi, everyone. Tim Llewellyn. Atomic Cartoons started in 1999, originally starting as a 2D studio, doing more traditional animation. About 10 years ago, we moved into expanding out into CG and doing full CG productions. I myself came from visual effects, spent a lot of years there, started sort of mid-90s, working at ImageWorks, working at DreamWorks, doing a lot of productions there. And so look forward to chatting with everyone about how you build a bigger and better pipeline.
Yeah, and I'm Robert Crowther. I'm the IT manager for Atomic. I've been working there for about 5 years. Help Tim out wherever I can and everything else.
Let's get started. So I want to tell you guys a quick story. About 2 or 3 months ago, when we had booked this session, I had written a script for what we discuss. And then probably a month later, it dawned on me that I kind of need to tear it up and start fresh because of all the news we were getting around post facilities and VFX studios and market forces that were changing and political realities. And so what I wanted to do was start fresh and really get your take at the beginning of the session about what is happening in our industry right now. What are the forces that are causing such rapid change? And then we can kind of get into how we build resilient businesses around that. Tom, do you want to get us started?
Sure. I mean, the general joke has always been better, faster, cheaper, pick any two, right? Nowadays, you absolutely have to account for all three. It's been absolutely crazy to see what's happened recently, but not quite unexpected. What we're seeing is we're seeing a lot of these larger organizations fragment and split up these movies and split up these shots all around the world. Like I said, we're a systems integrator, so we will quite often spin up productions who will service a movie in the cloud, work on it for 8 months, and then quite literally dissolve that entity and deliver that movie. And they go, thanks very much. We're off to our next thing. They're incredibly nimble. They don't need large capital expenditure up front, and they're able to pull talent from around the world, like really good talent, people that they've worked with in previous roles. So just a general fragmentation of the work, I think, has definitely happened. You know, we're servicing a movie at the moment. I can't mention the name, but we have about 25 vendors on the actual movie. So we're having to figure out how to split data off between those vendors, send files back and forth with them, in a realistic time frame, make sure that they get back to the dailies review that happen every single day. And it's quite a challenge.
Has that fragmentation been a result of more specialization in the industry around how to create something, or is it?
I would say cost is the biggest driver, to be completely honest with you. Cost and talent. So the margins are forever dwindling, and people are constantly looking to be hyper efficient, right? Because every percentage you save is a percentage in your pocket. So without having big overheads of large studios, large offices, large departments, you know, you can spin up a company that's got very capable creatives in it with no HR, with no accounts receivable, with no XYZ, and come in and bid the work and do quality work at a fraction of the cost.
It's almost like a virtual company at that point.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Tim, from your perspective, what do you see impacting most in your daily work?
I think it's probably a combination of consolidation and expansion at the same time, which I know sounds sounds weird, but I think with the advent of streaming, when it come along, a lot of what we end up getting from our clients is we want things to look like Pixar. But like Tom was saying, we want it cheaper, better, and faster, right? For that stuff to be there. And then even for us, when you're working on a lot of kids cartoons, you have the expansion that's going to end up coming, from toys. So a lot of what we do at Atomic, or at least a big brand that we work on, is Lego. Right. So now our concern isn't just for the show itself. So we have to build for the show, but now we have to worry about taking those assets, delivering them back and forth with Lego so it eventually can get to toy, and it can be the same geo. And then from there, it goes from toy, it goes to game. So you have this expansion of what we need to do. But at the same time, now it's consolidating into a singular company. So we have to be responsible for pushing more of that data around than we would have had before.
I kind of want to drill into that for a second. Is that the future of media production in this kind of like, where IP, you're just working on IP and it's being delivered through various platforms? Is that the future of a studio?
It looks like it's going that way, right? Just because if you think of people's viewing habits, historically it was movies and television. Now predominantly it's streaming, and it's not even necessarily streaming back onto your television, streaming to your phones, it's streaming to your tablets. So there's this larger idea of content everywhere all the time in different forms. Like I said, like we look at things of not only creating the cartoon, which, originally was just seen as the advertisement for the toys. Now it's an advertisement for being interactive with whatever that content is. And it could be cartoons, it could be live action, it could be whatever it is. But now again, you have this wider platform that you have.
And when you're done consuming that piece of media, you can then jump over to the ancillary piece of media.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we work on something, we work on a cartoon, you have a viewer that looks at it, they like what they see, if they like what they see, they can go buy the skin in Fortnite, and now they can interact as that character. And then if they want to buy something, say there's a costume that they want to buy, then there's going to be an expansion where they can click a few buttons and now you can have that costume shipped to you through Amazon, shows up the next day. So what you're experiencing sort of in virtual or in the metaverse is going to be the same experience that you end up having, sort of in your real life.
Robert, from your perspective, what are some of the blockers for a company on the IT side to moving fast and being able to make those assets available everywhere and create these multi-platform productions?
Latency. That's always the worst part of it, is being able to get, especially for the data side of it and the storage, getting those assets where the artists are, so it's the least impactful for their remote workflow, wherever they are, so because it shouldn't matter. And then being able to, again, like Tim was mentioning, get those assets as well to the client, like as fast as possible, because again, they're already thinking of the next thing. They're not too worried about the production that's going on right now. Yep, just bring that delivered. It looks good. Great. Next thing, let's go.
Can you expand on? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Tom.
Just saying to reiterate that, like, we sell time. We sell artists time. We're not selling a product. So any hour we can shave means it gives the artists back time to creatively iterate and make the end product better.
Robert, can you tell me a little bit, a concrete example of that workflow you just described? So is it a team of X amount of people in Vancouver and other people over here? What does that typically look like for you?
Yeah, so like Atomic has 3 different locations at the moment. We're in Vancouver, Ottawa, and LA. And we're constantly kind of like just syncing data back and forth, or having people in Ottawa remote into the Vancouver office, or vice versa. But being able to also have them from a different location, be like, hey, the project's actually hosted over here right now. Like right now, if you wanted to move 150 terabytes of all that data, that would take like a week. But, if we can have them remote in, then we can do that. Or if you already have the data over there, that wouldn't even be the problem. And then, like you said, then the artist can start faster, get the job done, and we can keep moving on with our other productions.
So Tom, in your consulting, or you guys, in business discussions, are you talking about, hey, this latency piece or this inability to deliver is killing us right now? How are those conversations happening?
Absolutely. You get 2 choices, right? One, you can either bring the artist to the data and centralize them with virtual workstations or build your data centers in the middle of a country or middle of wherever your artists are, which works fine up to a point, right? Once somebody breaks the 80 milliseconds, 100 milliseconds of distance, the artists start noticing it doesn't work great. So the only other option then is to sync that data to remote sites. And what you don't want to do is you don't want to pick up your whole 1 petabyte of data and sync it to all your remote sites, specifically if you just have a comper on the other side working on one shot. You just want to narrow it down and have a pipeline that's aware of all the subtrees and all the assets used to build that scene and just sync that data to them as quick as humanly possible. A perfect example is a lot of people will outsource tracking and roto. But where tracking and roto ends up being is back in a comp, and a comp is usually with a director. So you need that round trip time to happen immediately. You cannot play that roto, or you cannot play that clip, which is a collection of all the assets around the world in a single timeline. When you hit play, everything needs to be local. So it's very much a thing.
Are there more people involved now in the process given the fragmentation? In other words, are there more decision makers, or are there more people who need to be involved in that creative process to get it to completion?
I'm speaking for myself here, as a systems integrator, we're bottom of the line. We get told this needs to work out and do it. There's no real discussion. There's no real back and forth. This is our business plan, is to lower our costs by doing X, Y, Z, and you need to facilitate that.
So where do you guys typically look for cost reduction in, I'm not talking about headcount, I'm talking about infrastructure and upcoming spend and investment in infrastructure. If we have to dial back, where are those cost savings going to come from?
Being hyper critical on how much you're storing, on why you're storing it, and how many versions you're tracking, how long your workstations are running, how many render nodes you're running. Specifically, if you're looking in the cloud, you can rack up a decent bill relatively quickly. So you just need controls and management. If I go to a CG artist and I say, here's a cloud, here's some render nodes, when you turn the button, you get more, they're just going to turn it all the way up and say, great, here's my render back as soon as possible. Thank you very much. You need to build in those financial controls that fit within your budget. So that's kind of where some of the talking happens, is talking to the producers and saying, okay, the budget for this show is XYZ. I'm going to try and plan out that these shots are going to cost a lot. Therefore, we're going to run them on higher spec for a certain amount of time. These shows are pretty low. They're going to hit the back of the farm, low priority, and just be on the slow burner. We don't need these back for 2 weeks. So yeah, I guess the answer is there is more work and there's more juggling that goes on. If you don't, it just hits your pocket.
All right. So we've got, we're living in a world of distributed systems, people, storage, networks, creative talent, compute are all around the world. Let's get back to that notion of latency. How are we specifically killing latency in these systems so that these distributed systems are all in sync and artists are able to be in the flow of their creative process?
Yeah, for us, it's, like I said, it's being able to kind of plan ahead a little bit, but you still need to be agile enough to be able to be like, hey, yeah, like you said, we don't want to move the entire petabyte of data. We only want to move the actual data that's required for the shot to get there now. And so they can start working without having that latency of starting things up. I know for our own tests, we have 75 milliseconds of latency between Vancouver and Ottawa. If we open up a Photoshop file that's fairly large, it would take 5 minutes in Ottawa. If you did it locally in Ottawa, it would take about 45 seconds. So that little bit of difference alone is you show that to a producer and they're going to go, yeah, how much money am I losing of artist time just because they were waiting for the application to load because, and all they can see is that this is taking a long time. We provide that answer of, okay, this is what's causing it, and here's what some of the solutions might be.
Yeah. Nuke is a great teller for that. If you put 5 milliseconds between yourselves and Nuke, practically how that means is, imagine you have a render farm running in the cloud and there's a 5 millisecond delay between your pipeline on premises. And all those cloud machines are having to open up Nuke from your central res repository. If there's a 5 millisecond delay, Nuke's going to take 45 minutes to open. Render a frame, probably for 2 minutes, and then shut down and have to redo it again. So with Resilio tools and the new caching system, You basically insert a layer in front of a render node. Think of it this way. I kind of need both hands to describe this, but you've got your on-premises nodes, you've got your render nodes in the farm. If you spin up 200 render nodes, they're all going to request that same file 200 times, which is going to hammer your link. So there've been some iterations of software to try solve that, some sort of NFS caching like NFSD, which sits and it pulls the file across a single time and then serves it out multiple times. But on the back end, you're still tied to NFS. Resilio have a product now, a scale-out NAS that's kind of a direct drop replacement for that, and you can take advantage of their accelerated protocol in the background. So we've done like one-to-one shootouts between KNFSD and Resilio for that specific reason, and we've seen the time to first pixel reduced like by 20. So we're getting our renders back much, much faster.
That's a really good point too, because especially with your renders, when you said that you're waiting for it to load for 45 minutes, you're paying for that 45 minutes.
Yes.
So especially if you're in the cloud, that you're really paying for that, and you're like, okay, why am I waiting 45 minutes and I'm paying per second or whatever per minute of this cost?
And artists are generally known as the world's most patient people as well, right?
Well, and I think once you actually set whatever that time's going to be as well, and you know how quickly you're going to be able to get that data, I mean, that's where Robert and I work together a lot, where once we've established what the tech is going to allow us to do, then we can go back to the workflows. We can go back to what creative is requesting from us, and how do we modify our workflows so you don't have a Photoshop file that even interactively is going to take, a minute to load. Like, how can we be more efficient within our local workflows? So then that way, once we do put it out to the multiple networks it's going to have to go out to, we know it's going to be efficient there.
And you can write policies on top of it, right? So say which shots, because there's a good chance that within your shotgun or your job production system, which shots are going to be active that day. You can preemptively sync those things and cache those things the day before, the night before, to make sure that when that artist comes and they open Photoshop, it's already there locally cached. They don't have to wait the 5 minutes or the 10 minutes or the 45 minutes for you. So it's really like implementing the system and then setting up a set of policies on top of it that makes sense for the business.
All right. So somewhat controversial question here. Have the economics of the cloud-based production changed for the negative for post and VFX? Do we need to move production back to mostly on-prem resources, or can we still live in a world where production work is being done with cloud and on-prem and everything in between? Can we still have that happy medium, or does the economics not work out for using cloud services?
I think for us, the hybrid is the reality now. Like, I don't think we will go back to our point where we're being on-prem.
Yeah,
so I think it's just adjusting to whatever that reality is.
Yeah, it's exactly that. We have to stay at least hybrid for some workflows. There's definitely going to be some things where it's much better for and be able to like burst our resources when we need to. If client comes back with a change we weren't expecting, then great. We can get that out the door within time.
Yeah, I think it's important to pick who you're working with. In terms of who's helping you out do the integration. You can absolutely go out and do it by yourself, and learn the hard way, and generally the hardware costs money. We're 5 years in. It took us a good 3 years to figure out how to get the finances to stack up for companies. You have to be hypercritical on what you do. There are some cold hard facts on, machines are going to shut down at the end of the night at this time unless you say no, and then you raise a ticket or raise a reason. Looking at a list price and comparing it to going out and buying a computer isn't apple for apples at all. It's really not. I've seen the most unbelievable things achieved from companies who are based solely in the cloud. I've also seen the most unbelievable things achieved from companies who can burst into the cloud. I genuinely feel that one way or another, the cloud is here to stay. Whether it's burst or whether it's 100%, time will tell, but it's a fact at the moment.
All right. So let's talk about like physical equipment, hardware, where we are in the world today. Are you reconsidering purchasing and investments in equipment, no matter where it comes from in the world? Do you have to think differently about your next round of upgrades for hard drives? Is there a way that Resilio can help with that scenario? What's your view on making an investment in storage?
Times recently has definitely made it a lot more interesting. Trying to find storage solutions and whatnot. I know for us, we're definitely looking at ways we can help optimize our current storage usage, as well as, whether it's storing things in different locations, or, what are we going to archive into AWS that, are we done with it like on a per episode basis? Are we archiving now? Which now we are with Resilio. That's mostly where the conversation on our side's been so far, trying to optimize, at least on the storage costs. All of our storage is primarily on-prem. A lot of our storage that's in the cloud is purely archival.
What's different about how Resilio is helping you archive projects?
Well, it makes it really quick and easy to be able to just push it to the cloud, not to think about it. And since it's on like a completely different system, especially talking about resource uses and whatnot too. The solution that we were using before, we were using about 8 times more RAM and CPU alone just to try and like push it through. And then occasionally, an issue might happen and we have to like remake some API calls, which, the production doesn't know that API calls to AWS costs something.
Yeah.
So now we're doing another couple thousand of those. Like, okay, so why was there a $4,000 bill for just API calls? And it's like, well, I can explain this, but you're not going to like it either way.
Yeah, I would say once a week I get a call from a CFO or a CTO saying my CapEx budget's due next year and I don't know how much I want to spend on CapEx and how much I want to move to OpEx in the cloud. And it's always a discussion. There's no one answer fits all. Every single situation is unique. Every single customer is unique. We really try and put a common sense approach in front of everybody. If it makes sense to move this up and move it over here, absolutely, let's go with that. If it makes sense to go out and purchase more hardware, we should probably go and do that.
Is Resilio helping you achieve that sort of flexibility for the customers that you're consulting with?
Yeah, absolutely. We're working on a very, very large project at the moment with massive files. 17 minutes of footage is around 45 terabytes of data for them. And they've got a couple movies, full-length feature-length movies that we're having to try and move and shift around. And traditionally, with their incumbent transfer system, we would have had to have gone out and spend A, millions of dollars on licensing, and B, millions of dollars on equipment and hardware. With Resilio, we've managed to drastically reduce the footprint of the hardware they need to purchase. There's an endpoint in the cloud and an endpoint in Burbank and then an endpoint at their venue location. And we're seeing 200 gigabits a second between those regions. It's absolutely wild. Like I've never seen anything like it before. So because of the speed and what we're able to achieve with very little hardware, it's affected them, because traditionally they would have had to have gone out, purchased their incumbent solution, run multiple of them in a stack to achieve that same speed.
Yeah, well, and I was going to say it helps us react to sort of the changing dynamics in the industry anyway. Because, like Tom was saying, originally you work on a project, you get all your information from that. Once you go to archival, once you're done and you're saving that information, you're rarely sort of going back into it. Now that things tend to be more bigger IP driven, there's a lot of going back to that data. So even though Robert was saying that a lot of what we do is archival, it's not just archival so it can just exist in the cloud. So, we only access it once or twice. There is a constant back and forth of now we need to go and grab this information. I was mentioning Lego before. It's a really good example of that. Lego, as everyone knows, the bricks don't change, the minifigs don't change. It's all pretty standard. So for us to have to keep going back and forth to that data, it isn't really just an archival situation anymore. It's
nearline.
Yeah, it's nearlining. It's like, let's put it over here until we know that we're going to need it again. Yeah. So like, having that solution and being able to work with Resilio and certainly work internally with Robert on making sure that we have access to all that at any given time, has just made our response back to clients even that much better.
Absolutely. Absolutely. If everyone's done this where you send out an email to production to say, hey, which shows can be archived? And you send them a list and you get back a list of 5 shows saying, please don't archive XYZ. And you're like, that didn't help. That didn't help me at all. Yeah, thank you very much. But if you implement a system that they can retrieve files quickly, the artist can browse the archives, so treat it like a true nearline. And when they hit restore, it comes back quickly. You find they're far more open to letting things age off and letting things disappear into archive.
Because they're not worried about it.
They're not worried. Exactly. Traditionally, it's put in a ticket with your tech ops department, who
speed again
has to go find the LTO unless the LTO has gone off site, and then wait for the truck to bring it back and then plug it in, and So we've seen massive efficiencies with all artists having access to all data at all times. Although a vast majority of that is sitting in an archive tier.
But like you said too, like also with Resilio being able to do the regex inclusion and exclusions, being able to say, hey, this is actually the data I want to keep. Like, I don't need to keep any of the, keep the latest versions of all the EXRs or whatever. That also helps reduce the cost in the cloud, as well as the amount of data we need to bring back, push forward, like reduce costs all around just for having that one little addition.
Yeah. And it's very nice and flexible in that you can run pre-flight scripts and post-flight scripts. So, we run a job embalming system, which basically goes in, kicks out all the camera raws because the color companies are meant to have that, or it's sitting on a hard drive. It cleans up all renders that are not published into a timeline, and it only keeps 2 versions, and it reduces your data footprint massively. It deletes all geo as well, which is, depends who you ask if it's a safe thing or not, but you can end up with one job that's...
We're talking about terabytes here of data storage?
Absolutely. Traditionally a commercial job will run about 30 terabytes. Once you embalm it and clean it up, it goes down to a terabyte. So 30 times smaller, and you can recreate that content without too much hassle.
And so you're now extending the lifespan of your local storage systems.
And your wallets.
Yeah. Well, so we've talked a lot about systems. I want to shift the discussion a little bit to talk about people in your organizations. How are you recruiting, finding artists around the world? How are you supporting your latest project when you need to expand, the next project comes around? How does technology support that? We're talking about remote work or people working from workstations in, home or somewhere around the world, that we're talking about huge latency problems here. How are you solving for that? How are you staffing up?
Well, I can speak for us in Vancouver. A lot of times it's not even reaching outside the world. It's just reaching within the artist pool within Vancouver itself. So, Atomic after COVID, sort of had everyone go home. As we slowly came back, we opted for a hybrid model, to where we could, utilize as many artists as possible, and grow beyond the size of what our physical location would actually be. So a lot of the back and forth that we do still ends up just being to the local artist pool that we have, just because, working in Canada, a lot of that production's going there is just derivative of the tax breaks and the tax incentives that go. So you have to keep those folks local, but we still ultimately face the same problem of working with remote artists. And what's the best way to, not only have them interact with whatever the system is, but interact with wherever the data is.
We also saw a lot of people leave the main hubs when like Vancouver, the big cities and whatnot, and I start branching out to a little bit a few hours out and whatnot. Generally for us, if you have a decent internet connection, the latency doesn't really matter. You might have added 3 milliseconds. Oh well. But you get to, I still hire those people that are out there that have moved out there. They still get to work on the projects that you work on. Everybody's happy.
Yeah, the actual process for the artist, the onboarding and having them connect needs to be as bulletproof as possible. It needs to be very simple, very plain forward. Where do I download my DCV or PC over IP connection from? And we create quite a nice, for every client we roll out, we create an onboarding web page where they log in, and it's literally step 1, do this, step 2, do this, step 3, do this. And then additionally, there's a button, and that's their own personal page, right? Where they can reboot their own computer. Because say that remote workstation locks up, you can't go in and press the power button. You need to have tools that allow you to kick that when it's kernel panicked and it's broken. So a lot of that is just building in the background and layering in those things on top of it and making sure that the artists are aware of those tools and actually use those tools. Still doesn't stop people from asking us, hey, can you reboot my computer? And we just go look on your homepage.
Love it. We're gonna...
No, I think it's exactly correct. Yeah.
where are productions happening now? Are we seeing production shift out of the traditional, centers of LA and Toronto and Vancouver? Is production happening everywhere, or is it consolidating back to those centers? And how do we need to kind of address the shift in business if that work is moving all over the world?
I think for us, it's kind of stayed, while people have expanded, some people have decided to come back now, but keeping us hybrid has been key. So it still gives us the flexibility of being able to have people, at home whenever they need to, but also then have, be able to come into the studio to if we're kicking off a project, let's get everybody on the same page for the first 2 weeks. And then, as long as feel comfortable from that point, we can go work from home, work from wherever.
Yeah. Cause I think that, to more directly answer your question, production's going to go wherever it's cheapest and wherever it benefits the client the most, right? And whatever the budget, and the schedule's going to tolerate. So being able to remain as dynamic as possible. So for right now, yeah, a lot of our folks are within Vancouver. If a different client comes in with a different schedule and different budget, and it makes sense to have artists somewhere else based off of, whether it's tax incentives or, whatever they're getting for moving the production there, we have to make sure, we're just as dynamic in responding to their needs as we would be if it was local.
I'd say anywhere and everywhere. We've seen a lot of our customers start making use of shops in, Eastern Europe, which is a recent thing. Singapore, Asia, not traditionally the hubs, which were, India, London and the US and Canada. So to me, it seems like it really is a global workforce today. Working on this project that we're working on right now, which I said has 28 vendors around the world. If I put them all on a map, you wouldn't be able to tell a hotspot. They're everywhere.
That's it. So then how is the content that's getting recorded, created on site globally back to the post facilities? We're out on the edge. We need to get large files, AK files, whatever they are, back to a point. So when you consult with a customer, how do you say, okay, you're in 10 different locations. We need to centralize this again.
So we build them a Resilio package, which has got an installer and a config file for them. And we basically send them a data structure. And we say, welcome packet. Welcome, you're a vendor of XYZ show. Install this, put this file in this place here, and open up these firewall ports. Once that's done, we can actually control that job and that server, and we can see when the files land. And we start creating transfer jobs for those, sync jobs, to say, all right, when user over here drops a file in, automatically sync it into my pipeline folder over here, and then notify ShotGrid.
So it's turnkey.
Turnkey. Well, turnkey-ish. We're having to make it, but it's turnkey for them. Yeah.
What advice would you guys give to somebody who came up from our audience, say, I'm going to start a poster VFX studio tomorrow?
Don't do it.
Do it? Okay, good.
Don't do it.
Oh, don't do it. Okay. Well, why? And, based on your experience, what would you do different if you were to start over?
Myself, probably nothing. I absolutely enjoyed my working career. I spent 18 years at the mill, coming up through the ranks there. It was an incredible place to work. Felt like you were surrounded by the world's best. Taught me kind of everything I know, and then split off to start up my own company. And I'm enjoying seeing what's happening specifically in advertising right now, where a lot of senior creatives have left the mill and NPC for obvious reasons to start up their own companies. And every single one of them has been successful. They're all successful in their own rights. Some are 300 people, some are 5 people, some are 20 people, but everybody is enjoying what they're doing, and they're able to do their passion, which is, visual effects. I will say I don't think anybody gets into this field as a hobby. You have to love it. You absolutely have to love it. My other option was corporate IT, which I absolutely hate. So, it was a bit of a no-brainer for myself.
We love our corporate IT clients. Tim?
Yeah, no, going off of what Tom was saying. Yeah, it's traditionally everything was these bigger, larger studios, right? That you had to go work for, whether it was the mill, NPC, ImageWorks, DreamWorks. And now things have broken up a lot more, right? There's a lot more studios that can focus on niche things. So startups can happen in this sort of larger world economy that is there for it, right? Which then keeps pushing creativity because you have access to more artists that are around the world that can just feed into the bigger zeitgeist of what we can do, right?
Yeah, and I would probably say first impressions for everything always matters. Whether it's the artists jumping into the company for the first time on a new project, if that onboarding is not smooth, your perception of the company is not good. And same with the project. Then it seems more like a mess of a show than an actually fine-tuned running machine with people at the helm doing what they love. So if you're frustrating your artists in the first 10 minutes that they're starting with work, they're going to be going, oh boy. And then also with your clients too. Like I said, now that it's not that anybody would ever treat other, clients poorly, but it's not just, oh, it's Disney or, oh, it's Netflix. It's this one that I haven't heard of. Oh, but they have this massive, huge, product. First impressions matter for the clients, for the productions, for IT, for the studio, for everybody. So just always keep that in mind, I would say.
Yeah. So guys, what's next? What do we need to keep our eyes on? What's the next shift that's coming around the corner that's going to knock us over? What do we need to think about as we start our next production?
I can do a bunch of buzzwords. It was like AI.
I think we're all going to say words.
Yeah. It's in our contract to mention AI, so that's ours.
Definitely generative AI.
Yeah.
I think everybody right now wants to be second in line to try something first. To try something new, rather. There's been very, very mixed results. There've been some great stuff to come out of it, and there's been some awful stuff to come out of it. And I think everybody right now is coming up with their own opinions on whether they think it is or isn't. I believe that there will be some iteration of it to use as a tool to make content.
Yeah, like even when we looked at, if we're talking about AI for a second, as we looked at integrating it at Atomic, we actually looked at it from the perspective of not necessarily not pushing the creative of what was happening there, but assisting the artist to push their own creative to get what they need. So a lot of it has been focused on AI denoising or machine learning denoising within our renders. So how can we get the information back to them quicker, right? It's what we've been talking about anyway, in the same way we look at the data. How do you get information into the hands of artists quicker so they can make the decisions that they need to generate the images that you can get that stuff just as quickly back to the client? So even in the infrastructure and how we'll look at AI and how we'll look at machine learning or whatever the next buzzword is going to be tomorrow, we'll be able to attack that by applying it to the same idea.
I've been thinking about this. I think there's a really interesting, I come from a creative background. I was a video editor and designer early in my career before moving into marketing. And as I think about it from the creative perspective, if you are creative, these tools will help you be better at your craft. If you don't have typography or color theory or motion design or general understand the theory of design, these tools are not going to make good things for you. I think about my own experience moving from tape-based video editing early in my career to nonlinear editing systems. It didn't make me a better editor. It just made me be able to move faster on the project I was working with. Do you guys kind of feel the same way? If you're creative, it's going to amplify your creativity?
That's the dream.
Yeah.
That's the goal, I think. That's absolutely what everybody wants it to do and is going to try and see what comes out of it. From a non-visual perspective, I use ChatGPT every day to make up for my absolutely terrible Python programming. It's just a thing in my head where I really struggle with Python, but I use it every single day to write scripts and help me out do things. Will a animator use some tool every single day to help them out with animating? That's what everybody's waiting for. That's what they're hoping for. Will that mean that, that animator no longer has a job? Absolutely not.
Yeah. If you look at even 5 years ago, the big buzzword was cloud. Yeah. And now it's all, everyone's like, oh, everybody's moved to the cloud. It's all this, it's all that. And it's okay, for some people, yes, that worked and that was super successful. Well done. For us in particular, it's okay, which workflows does the cloud make sense? Cost-wise, production-wise, client-wise? Does it check all of our boxes that we need to for security? All that fun stuff. So now, yes, the word 5 years ago was cloud this, cloud that. And yes, we do use the cloud now, but we're using it very particular ways that helps our production workflow. But so that was just that. But with AI, it's 100%. We're trying to figure out, or everybody's trying to figure out, where is the tooling? How can we help the artists?
Isn't that the fun part of what we do, is being able to fold these new innovative technologies into the process that we do, and the thing that we love? I mean, it's just keeping us on our toes, right?
It's a blessing and a curse.
I did want to kind of wrap up the discussion with, you guys have been long time Resilio customers. Aside from the technology, what's it been like working with Resilio as a company, from the perspective of supporting the team and helping you, extend what the product can do in your environments? What's been your relationship with Resilio?
So I think I mentioned previously I was using something called KNFSD to do my caching, which is an open source product, which means it doesn't come with a telephone number, doesn't come with a Slack channel, doesn't come with a person I can reach out to if I have any issues. We've been working with Resilio now for the past year on some pretty sizable projects. And their development team have actually been writing in tools and releases specific to us. Most recently, they asked to chat to our customers, to get feedback to see how they could make the product better, which to me was the first time I've ever seen it. It's fantastic to see, because all it does is everybody benefits. Every single person in the chain will benefit from that. So yeah, just complete, fantastic support from them so far.
It's great to hear.
Yeah, and I can let Robert speak to the more specific interactions with your team, but I know from being sort of that end user of that, running the productions where we're utilizing the access to the data that we have there, the fact that we've been able to have access to that data, we've been able to give it to artists quicker, has just been mind-blowing, as we've switched to you guys. And that has allowed us to empower artists more, right? As we were just saying, that's ultimately what we want to do. So Resilio has helped us do that.
Yeah, especially support is always the biggest thing. I think a product lives or dies by their support. Working with the Resilio support team and the developers over there it's like Tom was saying, it's been refreshing. Nothing's into touch with them. They will, nothing's out of bounds. They have, if you have a feature request, they really want to hear it. They want to know what the workflow is. They want to make sure that they get it right. And that, I know for us, when we first joined on, there was a feature that wasn't there originally. And we're like, oh, that's pretty key for us, actually. And within 2 weeks, we had the first iteration of it, and we'd been talking with the development team of hey, this is how we want to make it work. This is how it works for us. And with the previous company that we were using for trying to transfer data and stuff like that, we had features requests in for 3 years, and none of them were addressed. So changing that from 3 years to, hey, I have a thing that would be really useful for us. Oh yeah, here it is in 2 weeks later. That makes our speed for our productions as well so much faster, because then I know if something from left field comes in from a client, or, something comes up that, oh crap, we need to do this right now. I know I can go to the Resilio team and I can be like, hey, here's our situation. Here's what we're trying to do. This is what, is this the best solution? We can have that conversation versus other companies where I don't feel like we could.
It's a double-edged sword. You should ask them what it's like hearing from us all the time. I might not be so thrilled.
I can only speak from experience, but I know whenever Gunpowder's name comes up or Atomic Cartoons, that there's a big smile on all our faces, because you guys are so interactive with us, and we haven't figured it all out. And in that collaboration, we can build products that really meet your needs and needs your customers. And I think that's kind of what makes the company special. And we love that.
Yeah, and ultimately with productions, you don't know what you don't know, right? Like Robert was just saying, that requests that come out of left field. I must be playing left field because I'm throwing a lot of requests that are coming out from that end. So again, just the ability to respond to that stuff quickly at the speed at which productions and clients are going to want to see those results is, it's
Like if Tim asks me a question, being like, hey, can we do this with this tech? With a lot of other ones, I'll just be like, no, like this is what's in their documentation. I don't think we'll be able to work with this to get this through. But I know that if it's with like Resilio or other similar companies that, if Tim asks me a question, hey, can we do this? I'd be like, I'm not sure. Doesn't seem like we can do it right now, but let me find out. And then we can actually have that conversation.
Yeah, because it's usually, it's not an if, we're going to have to do this. So let's just figure out what that's going to look like. So then that's a callback to your tech team, right? About how do we figure out what that's going to be, and the collaboration on that stuff is awesome.
Any final thoughts, guys?
Keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah,
it's been fantastic working with you guys, genuinely. We move at the speed of our customers, which means we need everything yesterday. And for us to be supported by our vendors in a similar fashion is just fantastic.
I love it. Let's move faster together. With that, it seems like a great place to wrap it up. Guys, would you mind telling me, for people who are watching this, where can they learn more about you and what you guys are working on?
Sure. Tom Taylor, the founder of Gunpowder Tech. We're systems integrators for content creators. That means not only just YouTubers. We have customers who create advertising, people who are creating films, people who create toys, manufacturing, anybody that is using computers to create any sort of visual content. We've done some large projects with artists. We've done some large projects with specific Hollywood blockbuster movies. We've done some large projects with big round balls here in Vegas. Feel free to reach out to us if you have any technical issue that you'd like to make go away.
Love it.
Yeah, and for Atomic Cartoons, pretty easy. If you just go to atomiccartoons.com, you'll see a list of the things that we've worked on, like I said, I think for the last 26 years. If you end up going to, I think it's Disney Plus, I think there's a lot of Lego content there, Lego Marvel Avengers.
I'm no stranger to that.
I was about to say, my son thanks you.
Lego Star Wars. There's going to be some new stuff that's coming out there. I think we currently work on, Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. Disney Plus that's out there. If anybody's interested in seeing what they do, they can go to the website. And there should be links on there for Robert. There should be links on there for myself. So, obviously, if anybody has any questions, they can go there.
Great. Tom, Tim, Robert, thank you for joining us at NAB 2025. It's been an amazing conversation. I appreciate it, and have a great show. Does anybody have any questions in the audience that you'd like to pose to the team while we're up here? Questions? Yes, sir. Maybe do we have a mic? Thank you.
So thank you, and I think everything was very clear. And I'm directing an operation of a post-production facility based in Chile and Mexico. So somehow it's great to know that we have maybe the same issues and the same boundaries. But when you talk about optimization and trying to make work everybody from different places, I guess what I get is that a very important thing is the logistic and coordination, pre-production, so I can have the media wherever I need it before, no? So how much is the technology that you're looking for, or the new roles of people doing that? I mean, is automatization, or is people doing this coordination?
In an ideal world, it's automatic, right? So if you're using ShotGrid as your shot tracking system or something like that, do you have a shot tracking system? So your shot tracking system should be aware of where each user is and the shot that each user is. So we can build a script that queries that. So queries, okay, Tom is going to be working on shot number 50. We know that Tom's based in New York. So I'm going to preemptively grab those files and push them across for Tom. And it's not a huge amount of work to do that. It's connecting a few little APIs together, and you can actually start pushing that data. It works very well. And then additionally, what you can do is give tools to your artists. So give them drop-down menus in ShotGrid. So I want to take this shot. I know I'm finished with it. I want to send it out. Right-click send. And in the background, that'll trigger off scripts, which will talk to Resilio, which will then handle that transfer in the background. And then communicate it back via Slack, via Teams, via text, via email to say, hey, the shot syncing is completed. It's, there's a bit of process to do, but it's not a huge amount of work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I know you guys touched on a little bit about these artist pools of where you find your artists, but is that more through your own networks, or is that more through people who are responding to job offers? How are you exactly finding these artists?
Speaking for Atomic, it's a little of both, right? A little of column A, a little of column B. So we do have a recruiting department that if there's a particular show that we're bringing in that we know is going to need a particular skill set, we'll actively go out and try and recruit those folks to bring them in. Being, our main hub being in Vancouver, there's a very large artist pool there that we have access to. That will also tap, which then just goes, I was mentioning our website. You can go to our website and then click through there, and you'll see, the different shows that we have and the different jobs that are available to work on those shows. But like I said, we tend to keep within those pools, or at least the pools from where our studio is as we expand. If we do start looking at doing co-productions and working with different studios within different places around the world, usually we have access to their recruiting departments as well, which then gives us access to those local areas to be able to recruit from wherever that work's going to get done.
Thank you.
Robert, you had said that onboarding needs to go smoothly. When you're dealing with a company that is just taking on onboarding for the first time, what are some of the hurdles that come up to new companies that are now taking on onboarding?
Very good question. I think the biggest thing for advice that I could give would be do the process yourself as many times as possible, and never think that it's done because it never is. For in particulars, it's it's having the test workflow, especially if you're having remote artists and things like that. It's okay. Here, let's make sure your internet speed's, consistent. Let's make sure you're not using Wi-Fi. Let's make sure, let's test your latency to, the studio itself. Here, paint us, give us these results. Now we have, an idea of what your connection's like. So if you're working remote, we have a better idea of, what your experience is going to be like. And if it's not going to be great, that we can get ahead of that now and let the artist know and figure out some sort of solution. So there's that, as well as just general documentation, being able to have a new artist be able to go and be hey, here's the systems that I'm touching. Here's the workflows that I have and my permissions. Here's my expectations and things like that. Being able to provide everybody, it's a lot of information on the first day for sure, but then you've given them that resource to go back to. So if they have any questions on workflow or things like that they can jump into that, see how it works. And then of course, whether it's your own internal support, your own productions, being able to answer questions, having a clear, escalation procedure is to be technical. But being able to have your artists being yes, if you have a question, you can definitely ask your lead. If your lead doesn't know, let's get that up to the supervisor. If that doesn't know, does that mean we need to do training? Does that mean we need to get this into more of the documentation and see where that kind of goes? Hopefully that helps answer.
Yeah, and I think a main thing with that too is just making that artist friendly. And I think, Tom, you were mentioning that as well when you were speaking before, is that artists tend, they are technical, but they're not into the meat and potatoes of really what's going on underneath the hood. They are really just wanting to sit down. They have an idea of what they want to create. They want to start pressing some buttons and create pretty pictures. So with everything that Robert was just saying, if you could take all of that and just make sure that it is ultimately artist friendly, that's where you're at least going to be pushing yourself forward on the best foot possible. But you're always going to end up having those questions. And so I could definitely plus one having the way to escalate that, right? So, artists talking to senior artists that then talk to leads that then talk to supervisors that then keep working their way all the way up the chain to make sure they can get the answers that they need.
With remote work, believe it or not, the question that comes up the most that I find is, are you on wired or Wi-Fi to your home modem? So I'm dead serious. So yeah, these PC over IP protocols work fantastically well as long as you have low latency. The moment you hop onto Wi-Fi, you've got latency, right? You're adding additional latency. Where we've had issues with people joining, our customers have had issues with their artists joining is when the modem's in the other part of the house and they're in the basement downstairs. And, their speed is fine when they run a speed test, but their latency is like 100 milliseconds between themselves and the modem. So we give them that feedback, and they basically, in their onboarding paperwork, mention, please make sure you have a hardwired cable connected to the modem. If you're on a contract for longer than XYZ, we will supply you with a cable however long you need. It's as silly as it sounds, like it's been incredibly effective.
Yeah, that's critical.
More question? One more? We'll take one more.
So, excuse me. So I kind of want to elaborate more kind of what's going on under the hood. What's the biggest, weak point or point of failure within your workflows?
Am I allowed to say me? That's a really good question. The thing is, we're always fine-tuning our process. Like, it's every new project brings in a new, unexpected twist to it, I would say. I think, for an example, we worked on My Little Pony project, and we were using a plugin called Yeti for like hair and things like that. We were not ready for how much data that was going to create, and so that our pipelines were not set up for like removing the older versions, keeping it clean. We didn't know what we needed to archive. If we need to archive those caches, what's like the important bit with that? And so then all of a sudden our storage was getting filled up. And then, now you're on our D-Day to, 100% full is now this crap. How do we keep the production going so that they're not behind schedule, but we keep enough free storage and everything else and keep everything optimized in the process? So every project will bring its twists and turns, and then it's using those for future projects as well. At least that's how I've tackled it.
Fast is never instant as well. I think the dream of being able to join a Zoom call with a comper, somebody who's doing your roto match move and somebody who's doing your actual rigging and lighting, and being able to work collaboratively on that Zoom session is unrealistic. You have to give the data time to transfer. It's transferring incredibly quickly, quicker than I've ever seen it go before. But a lot of producers and production coordinators don't quite grasp that concept, that you do still have to sit in or bake in the copy time.
Yeah. And ultimately we don't know what we don't know, right? Like, when a client comes to you and they're going to bring a project to you, you don't know what that level of creative is yet, right? And then when you start looking at the schedule that goes along with it and the budget that goes along with it, you have to start thinking about designing a workflow that is going to maximize all of that, and then take that whole thing and put it into the canister of technology, and hopefully you get the results that you want. So that's always going to be a constant. That's never going to change, right? That's going to keep moving.
And also just say, like, the old phrase of, well, there's never enough time to do it, but there's always enough time to do it again. Try and do it right the first time. That will save you a lot of time and headache, rather than just doing it quick and dirty. Then you have to actually create workflows and like actual, I don't know. Yeah, I guess workflows is the best term. If you actually create those through, then for the future you're set. You're not scrambling, doing the same thing again, being like, well, it worked that time. It's like, well, it could be better.